So your nervous system operates on two systems. The first one is the window of tolerance, which is how much you can tolerate before you're dysregulated. And the second one is the pattern recognition, and that is your threat library. Every danger that you've ever encountered, your system is scanning for that right now. These two systems work together. They're not the same thing. And misunderstanding them is often why people don't understand what's going on with them. Pattern recognition is your hypervigilance, your overactive amygdala. Every time you've encountered danger, your system stored that information. It created templates. So the more trauma that you have, the more templates that you have. And the more templates, the more triggers that you're going to encounter. So someone's tone of voice, someone slamming a door, looking away at the wrong time, all of that can be considered a trigger and cause you to get dysregulated. Now the window is how much your system can hold before it gets dysregulated. So while you're inside of the window of tolerance, you can think, you can feel. Everything isn't a big deal. It's not an emergency situation like right now. But outside of that window, small things seem like a huge deal because you cannot regulate. Your logical part of your brain actually gets knocked offline when you're dysregulated. And so everything can feel like a huge crisis. The window doesn't tell you what triggers you. The pattern recognition does that. And the window determines how much of that you can tolerate before you crash out and how long it's going to last. So antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy, they don't have a compressed window. They have a completely closed window. They cannot get stimulated enough. So that's why you hear that psychopaths are more drawn to sensations than anything, because they are trying to get their nervous system activated so that they can feel something by sensations. It also means that they are not affected in the same way by fear, emotions. They're able to be completely calm and in charge of what's going on in the most chaotic situations. Narcissistic personality disorder is almost entirely a window problem, though. The grandiose mask is not arrogance for the sake of it. It's a structural solution to a capacity problem. If nobody can get close enough to you, then they can't crash your window. The mask exists to keep vulnerability from ever reaching it. When something does reach it, though, the explosion from a narcissistic injury is huge because they've been holding it in for so long. And the pattern recognition in narcissism is not broken. It's just focused on one type of area. Can people see through me? And am I being seen as ordinary? They're afraid to be exposed or to just be ordinary. So anything outside of that barely registers. But if you try to expose them or make them feel like they're less than, that's going to be a fire. The dark empath is a very specific adaptation. When you grow up in a chaotic environment, your body starts to scan everything to see if it can kind of predict what's going to happen next to keep you safe. So they became very good at reading people. So the sensitivity from the compressed window actually presents in them as a very highly accurate people reading machine. The dark part is optional. It's a layer just sitting on top of that ability. Do they use the ability to read people for good or for bad? And if it's for bad, that's a dark empath. ADHD is mostly its own thing. You know, it's got dopamine function issues, but there is one piece that does connect it, and that is the rejection sensitivity. That is a compressed window all day long. Schizophrenia does not map to the compressed window, but it maps to this system in a different way. The pattern recognition. With schizophrenia, the brain actually produces the trigger itself. Pattern recognition is triggering without any input. So dopamine dysregulation causes the brain to produce false positive triggers. And hallucinations and psychosis is the results of that. A compressed window that hits the ceiling fast, plus a library full of templates from early experiences. So you have a system that crashes fast on top of a system that flags almost everything as abandonment. And the exhaustion from chronic fawning crashes whatever window was left. And when everything crashes, the authentic self comes out full force. So it looks like instability. So autism is partial and it maps a little differently than everything else. The window is compressed on sensory issues specifically. So they have a narrower tolerance for light, sounds, textures, social energy. Shutdowns and meltdowns are overflow events. But the pattern piece runs in the opposite direction than BPD. Instead of being overloaded with information, people with autism miss social cues. The rest of their pattern system is often pretty strong. It's only in the social setting that it seems to be impaired. The neurological wiring that creates these problems is genetic. Epigenetics is what happens when your family passes down a gene that has been changed due to things like trauma, extreme stress. And it actually changes how these genes are passed down to us. So that is the genetic part that links all of this together. What gets passed down is the sensitivity, the compressed window. Also, it explains why you need both environmental and genetic to see the problems. So if you had a set of twins and you split them up, and one was raised with a family that taught them proper emotional regulation, and they accepted them, loved them right, and they had a nice life, compared to the other twin that didn't have the same type of life, one is more likely to develop a personality disorder than the other one. And that explains exactly why you need both environmental and genetics. So the window tells you how much you can hold, and the pattern recognition tells you what you fear. Now that you understand what's going on, it's the starting point.